Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato Samha Sambuddhassa. All right, everyone. So today we will be moving forward with the 12 Akusala Chittas. We finished the 8 Lobamula Chittas last week at last week's session, and today hopefully we will be able to cover both the Dosa Mula Chittas as well as the Moha Mula Chittas. If I remember correctly, page number 36, everyone. Now, one would imagine in the compendium, in the comprehensive manual, as well as the original Abhidhamma books, we first, regardless of how many chittas there are and how many planes of existence or planes, bhumi, there are Kamavacha, Rupavacha, Arupavacha, and the Lokottara, we start with the Akusala, isn't it, everyone? Does anyone have an idea? Did you ever think, why are we starting with the negative? ඇයි මේ හැමලේම negative එකෙන් පටන් ගන්නෙ? Didn't it appear in your mind? Why is it that we start with, we could have very well started with the Sobana, the beautiful ones, we could have started with the Lokottara. Yes, oh, Malkantida, unmute kare. Gamini?
Yeah.
Gamini, did you have something to say, Gamini?
No.
Ne, hari. Oh,
මම හිතන්නේ බන්තේ අපි ඔක්කොම වැඩි ටික හරි ගස ගන්නවා අනිත් තැනට යන්න කියලා.
වැඩ ටික හරි ගස්ස ගන්න.
නෑ වැරදි what we do අකුසල වැරදි ඒවා හරි ගස ගන්නවන to go to a better place කියලා.
Yes. Yes, of course. ඒ වැරද්ද දැන් අපි කොහොමද දැන් හරි මල්කාන්තිවා දීපු උත්තරේ සම්පූර්ණම හරි. Then Samantha කියලා තියෙනවා because our minds are impure කියලා on the chat. Dil, what do you want to say, Dil? Yes?
Like when you summarize the Buddha's teachings, you say Sabbapapa Sakaranam, ඒකෙත් අපි ඉස්සනම කියන නැති වැරදි එකක් වක්වත් එන්න දෙපයි කියලා and තියෙන වැරදි අඩු කරන්න කියලා. මොකද අපි ආත්ම ගණනක්ම ඇවිල්ලා තියෙන සංසාරේ. ඉතින් ඒ නිසා ගොඩාක් අපිට මේ ධම්මත් නැතුව කමුකුත් නැතුව ඉතින් අපිට ගොඩාක් අකුසල තියෙන ඒවා ඉතින් නිතර අපි half the glass full තමයි හැම වෙලේම. ඉතින් half the glass full glass එක තියෙනකොට වතුර භාගේ පේන්නෙම ඒක අඩුපාඩු තමයි. ඉතින් අපේ හිත නිතරම greed hatred ඒ වගේ මේ delusion greed hatred and ignorance වලට තමයි හැම වෙලේම යන්නේ. ඉතින් ඕව ගොඩාක් proliferate වෙනවා. ඉතින් ප්‍රපංච වෙනවා. ඉතින් ඒ නිසා ඒක ඉක්මනට අඩු කරුවොත් අරව ටිකක් කෙරුවත් නැත්නම් පළරනවා.
Absolutely, Dil. Thank you. ඒක නිකන් පාපුච්චාරණයක් වගේ Dil වාගේ.
මට සිංහලෙන් ටිකක් පැටලෙනවා සමාවෙන්න. You asked a question in Sinhala, so I answered.
But yes, Malkanti, Dil, and I'm guessing that most of you had that in your mind. ඒ වුණාට දැන් මේමනේ දැන් අපි අභිධර්මය කරනකොට as we might already understand, it is quite to the point, isn't it? Right? So අපිට දැන් මේකේ හරි ඒ කියන්නේ to the point විදර්ශනාවටත් ගලපන්න පුළුවන් විදිහකට අපි උත්තරයක් බැලුවොත් හරි මේ වගේ මේ තියෙනවා සූත්‍රයක් අංගුත්තර නිකායේ ආගා වර්ගයේ පජ්ජෝත සූත්‍රය කියලා. Right? A sutta called Pajjota Sutta. Right? Pajjota Sutta. Now, Pajjota Sutta Aga is the translation of the word Aga is splendor. Right? Splendor. ඔතකොට මේ සූත්‍රය කියනවා within the sutra it explains, or the sutra goes on to say, hold on. The sutra goes on to say, in this world, bhikkhus, there are four splendors, right? The splendor of the moon, the splendor of the sun, the splendor of fire, and the splendor of wisdom. Hari, splendor of wisdom. The sutra goes on to say, there are bhikkhus, four radiances. What are the four? The radiance of the moon, the radiance of the sun, the radiance of fire, and the radiance of wisdom. There are four lights: the light of the moon, the light of the sun, the light of the fire, the light of wisdom. There are four brilliances: the brilliance of the moon, the brilliance of the sun, the brilliance of fire, and the brilliance of wisdom, right? Now, what is this? What does it mean? What it means is, in the Dhammacakka Pavattana Sutta, it says this sense of aloko udapadi, right? Aloko udapadi, that term, and this sutta, the Pajjota Sutta, the brilliances, the lights, is the same, right? It's the same. But it is more technical than that, right? Of course, it's a Buddha. What do you expect? Right? It's more technical and more sort of apt than that. We just, rather than just throwing it out in the air. What it says is, these akusala chittas that we have, or that we go through in the Abhidhamma, the first 12, they are the reason that our light has dimmed. The reason for the radiance of mind, the dimming of that radiance, the dimming of that brilliance, the dimming of that energy and power is because of these 12. The 12 akusala chittas. The more that they arise, the light dims. The more they arise, the light, the power, the brilliance, the radiance, it dims. Now, in the commentary to the Pajjota Sutta, it talks about what the word that you know, Sati Sampajanya or Sati Parasaya gena katha karana. It talks about Sati Sampajanya, right? It says this: wisdom together with sati is take it as a light, a fire, or a bright light that you can focus. Wisdom and that sati together, which makes this bright light, this energy. Through our attention manasikara, we shine this energy to what? According to Vipassana, the present moment object of comprehension, right? Present moment object of comprehension, right? If the light is weak, we do not see the object. Aloko udapadi does not happen. The arising of light does not happen. The seeing of dhammas does not happen. Why doesn't it happen? Because of this. These 12 chittas, the 8 lobha, the 2 dosa, and the 2 moha. You might think that the lobha and the dosa are powerful. Just wait up until we reach the moha. You will realize that moha can exist without a specific object within the whole complex of mind, really bringing the mind down to a depth that the Buddha refers to it as the most heinous crime that we can do upon ourselves, far beyond the heinous crime of shedding the blood of an enlightened being, a Buddha, killing an enlightened being, a father, a mother, patricide, matricide, far beyond any of that. Moha, the Buddha says, is a far greater akusala to hold in mind. This is called, this has a term. This light has a term. It's called Vipassana Obasa. The light of Vipassana, right? Vipassana Obasa. Vipassana Obasa only arises within a person in its full strength and potential the more that we suppress, initially suppress, later on eradicate the hindrances. What are the hindrances? How do the hindrances manifest? Grossly through these 12 Cittas. Grossly through these 12 Cittas. Right? This is called Vipassana Obasa. How in the Pajjota Sutta, by referring to the light of wisdom, it is specifically referring to the strengthening of the prajna or panya chetasika, the chetasika of wisdom. It is for that reason, everyone. It is for that reason the Buddha goes on to preach. The Buddha goes on to preach the 4 Brahma Vihara Dhammas. Metta, Karuna, Mudita, Upekka, loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. These are your friends. These are your friends. Why? Because when an object arises in mind, what should be or how one should be training to observe that object should be through Metta, Mudita, Karuna, Upekka, right? But these protect oneself from the object or our nature that pushes us to akusala because of our habit, right? But this practice also protects us from external forces and powers. So they are both there to protect your concentration, and it is there to protect you as a person, right? So these 12, getting rid or not මේකට කියන්නේ මේ වචනේ තියෙන්නේ මේ ඉවසීම මේ 12 ඉවසන්නේ නැති ගතිය, right? Not being patient with these 12, what it manifests is a stronger vipassana obasa. Is that clear, everyone? A stronger vipassana obasa, right? Now, let us come down to the lesson for today. Is that clear? Any questions?
Bante, is there a term in English for obasa?
Obasa is light, dear. Obasa is light, right? It's called the translation that is most apt is the light of enlightenment.
Thank you, Bante.
Right? The light of enlightenment, right? Now, in that light, because we are doing the consciousness, it says that mundane vipassana, right? Mundane vipassana, right? Produces a strong, not a very strong, but strong and powerful light of enlightenment, vipassana obasa. But consciousnesses that are with supramundane vipassana, when you experience the Maggaphala, right? That power and strength, right? There is no comparison to the power of that supramundane attainment, right? Supramundane attainment. So this is specifically referring to that light created by the mind at that moment, right? Now, let us go down to today's lesson. Page number 36, everyone, right? Page number 36. Consciousness is rooted in hatred. Gya Satye, do you have any questions from last week's class? Anyone? Okay. Consciousness is rooted in hatred. Dosa mula chittani. 2. One consciousness accompanied by displeasure, associated with aversion, unprompted. One consciousness accompanied by displeasure, associated with aversion, prompted. Unprompted, prompted. Is that clear? Right? These 2 types of consciousness are associated with aversion, meaning It is associated with dosa mula, right? Dosa mula. Consciousness rooted in hatred, dosa mula chittani. The second class of unwholesome consciousness analyzed by the Abhidhamma is that rooted in hatred, rooted in hatred. The second of the three unwholesome roots. This consciousness is of two kinds, distinguished simply by unprompted and prompted. Now, do you remember what prompted and unprompted is, everyone?
Yeah.
Right. Is that clear what prompted and unprompted is? Okay. If you have any questions, please do ask. In contrast to consciousness rooted in greed, which can arise with alternative types of feeling, which is joy or equanimity, somanassa or upekha, consciousness rooted in hatred arises with only one kind of feeling, that of displeasure. Again, unlike consciousness rooted in greed, consciousness rooted in hatred does not arise in association with wrong view, right? Although wrong view can motivate acts of hatred, according to the Abhidhamma, the wrong view does not arise simultaneously with hate in the same chitta, but at an earlier time in a different type of chitta. Can you think of the reason why? Can you think of the reason why this ditthi is not there in hatred? Take a wild guess, it's fine. Yes, Rivini.
Bhante, is it because hatred is the most prominent root in that particular chitta? When you're cognizing the object, when you're deciding you want to push it away, then before that you need to look at it with the moha of being able to control whether you have it or not, I suppose. But it can't happen at the same time, because in the chitta, when you have the dosa, that's the more prominent.
That's the more prominent. But why? Why? That's the answer I want. It is prominent at that moment. It is prominent. But why? What leaves the ditthi out? Now, lobha had, greed had ditthi, right? There were certain chittas where ditthi was associated, isn't it, everyone? Ditthigata sampayukta is a chitta with ditthi, wrong view, right? Associated with wrong view. However, in hatred, such an instance or scenario is not seen. Why?
Because the hatred is worse than the greed, and that because of that you cannot have hatred that never arises with right view either, because it's so strong. Unlike greed, it can never arise with right view.
But that is for sure clear, right? But why?
The mind is not clear enough to think about it.
The mind is not clear enough to think about it. Why?
Bhante, is it because greed and hatred never rises together? Because if you have the greed, that means you want something, and hatred is you hate, you don't want something. So is it because of that? So
yeah. Well, you're touching on the answer, Anoma. You're touching on the answer. However, as the others did as well, but we didn't get it. We didn't nail it really. Right?
Is it idea of destruction? Idea of destruction always.
The idea. Now we can't use the word idea because idea is ditthi.
Ditthi. Okay. Okay.
I think there is no ditti as such here, either samma ditti or ditti. It's coming.
That is for sure, Damayanti. Ditti.
It must be coming through a very emotional thing.
I
Without the
think it
ditti.
rejects the
It rejects the object, whatever it is, the hatred.
It-
Mind
Is
wants
it-
to reject it.
the mind wants to reject the object, right? So, anything else? Thank you, Chandra.
Bhante,
Chetasika.
if it's according to the Janaka karma, if you are born with greed or the hatred, that is dominant character.
You cannot be born with greed. Greed does not produce patisandhi. Anyone else?
Just a wild guess, Bhante.
Yeah.
Does the Ditti Chitta arise one moment prior to the Dosa Chitta as a causally producing phenomena?
Yes, it does, and I will explain that. Right? There is a etana භාවනා කරන්න මේකකුත් තියෙනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ අර යම් පිච්ඡන්න ලබති tampi dukkang dukkang when you don't get something that you want. ඒ දුක කියන දෙය අර the lobha chitta arises before the dosa chitta, and then the dosa chitta arises. That is how we have friction towards a situation where we prefer a different situation. So the preferential situation is lobha chitta, but now in the stark of reality, this object that I'm facing with, that is dosa chitta, right? So the lobha arises before the dosa, right? Lobha arises before the dosa, right? But Chandra did say metana not didn't nail it, but went close, which is a dosa chitta becomes obsessed. Obsessed with what? Getting away. A dosa chitta gets obsessed with getting away, right? With getting away. It is powered by ditti. Powered by ditti means the more self there is, the more hatred that would arise. Right? And ditti and self is formed of ditti, right? Dosa is powered by ditti through the anusaya level, in the anusaya level. However, at the moment a dosa chitta arises, the only inclination or the only thing that consciousness wants is to get away. Doesn't even if it means jumping from jumping into the frying pan, even if it means jumping into the frying pan, doesn't matter. I want to get away from this object. එතන හිතන්න වෙලාවක් නැහැ. හෝ හිතීමට මූලිකත්වය. There is no prominence given to thought there. It is only act. Get away. Does that make sense? However, it is powered by ditti. Right? It is powered by ditti. The dosa mula chitta does not have wrong view because its primary focus is not logic. It is to get away. Friction. Friction. Is that clear, everyone? Does that make sense? Right? Now, although wrong view can motivate acts of hatred, according to the Abhidhamma, the wrong view does not arise simultaneously with hate. In the same chitta, but at an earlier time in a different type of chitta. Right? Accompanied by displeasure. Domanasa sagata. The feeling that accompanies states of consciousness rooted in hatred is displeasure. The Pali word domanasa derived from du manas, bad mind, manas is mind, signifies unpleasant mental feeling. This feeling accompanies only consciousness rooted in hatred, and such consciousness is necessarily accompanied by this feeling. Thus, displeasure or unpleasant mental feeling is always unwholesome. In this respect, it differs from unpleasant bodily feeling, which is karmically indeterminate, and from joy and equanimity, which may be wholesome, unwholesome, or indeterminate. Now, this type of feeling only arises with the dosa chitta. Clear, everyone? Does that make sense? Right? Now, did you get the chance to read the book before coming to today's class? Yes? Anyone who didn't read the book? Who was unable to read the book? Most of you all read the book.
I still don't have a book, so I'm waiting for the book.
You have to, the digital version is available, Mano. So you could very well read it on your computer up until the book arrives as well, right? Please do start reading the digital version up until you get, can someone send the digital link to Mano, please? Right? Shriyani, could you send the digital link to Mano? Yeah? Shriyani, send the digital link. All right? Read the PDF, Mano. Don't waste time. Read the because it's going to get a bit overwhelming for you at one point when you don't remember the details, right? And I really want to introduce the Patthana at one point, so you need to know all these details, right? So, Mano, read the digital if you don't have the physical, right? Now, Patika Sampayutta, both of them are Patika Sampayutta. Associated with aversion. Whereas consciousness rooted in greed is explicitly said to be accompanied by greed, consciousness rooted in hatred, dosa, is expounded under the synonymous term aversion, patika. Patika includes all degrees of aversion, from violent rage to subtle irritation. The word literally striking against, which indicates a mental attitude of resistance, rejection, or destruction, what we spoke about just now, isn't it, everyone? Right? Resistance, rejection, or destruction, right? Now, can you tell me, everyone, right? What does the word, or how does the word resistance relate to you as a practitioner? What does resistance mean in your experience? Damayanti, what does resistance mean to you? No, it can be right or wrong. It doesn't matter. What does the word resistance, now we know Damayanti, we are talking about dosa, right? What does the word resistance tell you? It doesn't need to be right or wrong. It's whatever you think it is.
Resistant to go the opposite way of the patika, I think. So when I have aversion, I am having resistance to the opposite, to be pleasant, isn't it? I don't know. Resistance to the normal way.
Resistance, it has to be present moment, right? Yeah. So resistance to
be the opposite of patika, to be something to be pleasant or nice. I'm resisting that and getting, I think, having thought of patika.
Forget about the book. I want your personal experience. Resistance, kina vachane, as a practitioner, dvesa sagata situvili enwane neda. E dvesa sagata situvili da me resistance kina vachane, e dose experience ka teka komada api relate karaganne. Waata therena vidiyata. Resistance. To what do you have the resistance?
To what is in front of me.
To the present object.
Object, yes.
Vidarshana bhasaven kata karamo.
Present object, yes.
Present object.
Object,
we have resistance to the present object.
Object.
That object can be
aramuna, even the meditation aramuna.
Sure. What is a meditation aramuna?
Let's say the Dhatu Manasikarya.
Nama or Rupa.
Dhatu, Rupa, yes.
Nama or Rupa.
let's say it is Rupa.
So it can be Nama as well.
Oh, yes, it can
Right.
be.
So the object of comprehension, it is Chakku Vinyana, Kaya Vinyana, Mano Vinyana, right? Resistance to that Mano object, the object taken by mind at that moment.
Yes.
Right? Resistance taken by the Mano object at that moment. Right?
Yes.
Otokota Damayanti, then you have a problem with something that I've said, right? Otokota, the resistance comes towards your assumption or your, together with your dikti, towards now this shabda that you've taken in, the sound that you've taken in. Right?
Yes.
So your resistance is towards what you have now comprehended.
Yes.
So this resistance, it can be both a rupa and a nama, isn't it?
Nama. Yes.
Rupa and a nama. All right. Rejection is the same. It can be towards a nama or a rupa, but we know all of this is comprehended by this, I'm sorry,
mind.
towards the brain, but what I mean is the mind.
Mind.
Right? Comprehended by, all of this is comprehended by the mind.
The mind.
Now, in this object that is comprehended, in this object that is comprehended, right? Resistance, rejection, or destruction. We are really giving into the patiga over there. Destruction, right? My way or the highway. If there is no highway, I will destroy the highway, right? Right? That kind of, you really giving into the destruction element. Now there, thank you, Damayanti. Now there, this patiga, everyone, realize now through displeasure and aversion, though displeasure and aversion always accompany each other, their qualities should be distinguished. Displeasure, domanassa, is the experience of the unpleasant feeling, the vedana. The vedana is displeasure. Aversion, patiga, is the mental attitude of ill will or irritation. Right? So this resistance, rejection, or destruction applies to the patiga. Is that clear, everyone? And domanassa, the displeasure, is that burning sensation or that irritation of mind that appears, but the resistance, rejection, or the destruction is towards or is applicable to the patiga, not the domanassa. Is that clear? Does that make sense, everyone? Please ask me to repeat if it is not. Right? Is a mental attitude of ill will or irritation. In terms of the 5 aggregates, displeasure is included in the aggregate of feeling, vedana kanda. Right, there you go. While aversion is included in the aggregate of mental formations, infinitely more clear. Right, domanassa is vedana kanda, right? Aversion is sankhara kanda. It's a fine line, everyone. It's a fine line there, isn't it? Neither. It's a very fine line there. Now, now, tell me. Let's do an example, right? I have eaten. I don't know where mangoes come from. I have eaten this particular mango before, and I don't like it at all. I can't stand the smell of, oh, durian. I have had durian before, and I absolutely hate it. Right? Now, what is that chitta?
දෝමනස්ස
හරි දෝමනස්ස තමයි අපි මෙතන කතා කරන්නේ. ඉතින් දෝමනස්ස විතර කියලා මදිනේ. මොන චිත්තයද?
Patiga.
දැන් පටිග කිව්වා. චිත්තේ නම මොකද්ද?
පටිග සම්පයුක්ත
දැන් පටිග දෙකටම පටිග සම්පයුක්ත තියෙනවා. පටිග සම්පයුක්ත සී පූර්වවිනි කිය
දෝමනස්ස
Dhamma
සහගත
දෝමනස්ස
පටික සම්ප්‍රයුක්ත
සාගත පටික සම්පයුක්ත.
පටික
අසංක
So we have, hold on, we have two chittas. Domanasa sahagatam patika sampayutam asankarikam. Domanasa sahagatam patika sampayutam sasankarikam. I have had durian before. I cannot stand the smell. I absolutely hate it. I don't want it anywhere near me. Please do not put it in my car.
It is sasankarika.
සසංකාරික.
සසංකාරික
අසංකාරික.
Now,
අසංකාරික.
අසංකාරික වෙන්නේ නැති හේතුව I have had it before.
Yeah.
Yes.
There is vitakka there. Right? There's vitakka there. Because there is vitakka there, right? Thinking, I have had it before. Hence, it becomes sasankarika. I have had it before. Please don't put it in my car. Please don't bring it into my house. I hate it. Right? Sasankarika. Right? Okay. I'm depressed. I'm depressed. What's the chitta?
අසංකාරික
Which one? What is the chitta?
දෝමනස්ස පටික
Domanassa,
දෝමනස්ස පටික
Patika sampayukta asankarika.
සංකාරික
Sankarika chitta. Sankarika chitta. So now everyone, in terms of feeling, we know sadness, depression, to a certain level, anxiety, but anxiety is connected to uddacha as well. A strong connection exists between anxiety and uddacha, but to a certain extent, anxiety, all of that comes into asankarika chitta. Is that clear? The maker ugoto වැදගත් මොකද භාවනාවේ when you're feeling sad, if you're feeling a bit down, if you're feeling a bit depressed, right? Then ඒක නාම රූප වශයෙන් අපි කඩනොට when we are breaking it into nama and rupa, you have to know at that moment in time what is a chitta. It's a domanasa sahagata patika sampayuta asankarika chitta. Right? Asankarika chitta. Right? Now, something happened to me last month, right? And the more that I think about it, right, the more sad I feel about the whole situation. What is the chitta?
That is sasankarika.
අසංකාරික
That is asankarika. The more that I think about it, the more sad I feel, I get, right? That is domanasa sahagata patika sampayuta sasankarika. Right? Sasankarika chitta. Right? I got so mad that I smacked the boy. I got so mad that I smacked the boy. What is a chitta?
අසංකාරික
අසංකාරික.
I got so mad that I smacked asankarika. Right? I was feeling red with anger that I was contemplating murder.
Oh, that's asankarika. That is asankarika.
Asankarikai.
No, sasankarika.
Contemplated.
No, that is
Contemplation.
sasankarika.
අසංකාරික කිව්වේ කවුද? අසංකාරික කිව්වේ කවුද? කවුද දිල් අසංකාරිකයි?
මං කිව්වා සංකාරික.
කවුද? මං කිව්වා
I said අසංකාරික
මමත් කිව්වා සංකාරික.
I said අසංකාරික
Sasankarika. Contemplation.
Sasankarika.
You contemplated. So sasankarika.
Yeah,
I was
contemplated.
contemplating murder.
Yeah.
Asankarika.
අසංකාරික
Contemplating murder.
No.
Contemplating murder.
If you thought of it, then it is sasankarika.
If you're imposing it with thought, it's sasankarika. So I was contemplating murder.
Yeah.
Sasankarika. Is that clear, everyone? Right? එතන අසංකාරික වෙන්නේ. I was filled with rage that I could kill. That chitta.
That is asankarika.
සංකාරික
That is
That is
asankarika.
asankarika.
If
That is
it
asankarika.
comes from habit, if it comes from habit, right? Not that you are so murderous, but if it took you by surprise, if it came by habit, if it came spontaneously, right? Asankarika. Is that clear, everyone? That makes sense, right? But something that we miss is that depression, sadness, that all of that comes under asankarika.
Sankarika.
Asankarika.
I'm from.
Right? But if now, let us say now, if we are feeling a little bit depressed and we are digging ourselves, thinking about a certain thing and digging ourselves into a deeper grave, then that can be sasankarika. But the feeling of, I'm feeling so sad, I'm feeling so low, I'm feeling, that is asankarika. But at the moment that you're depressed and you're digging yourself into a deeper grave, that's sasankarika. That clear?
Bhante, if there is just when you're depressed, where is the patiga?
The patiga arises, remember, all levels of friction, all levels of resistance. Patiga here is resistance to whatever circumstance.
Okay.
Right? There is a very subtle, sometimes very subtle, right? For example, I don't want to feel, I don't want to be in this situation. I don't want to feel like this every day. I don't want to get up like this every day. I want to stop feeling this. Right? That is patiga. Right? That is patiga. Now, the acceptance, we know that in therapy, the acceptance of, yes, I am depressed. Yes, I do have an anxiety issue. I do have a hate issue. Right? The acceptance of it goes a long way in therapy, isn't it? That acceptance of it, right, allows the person to now come into terms to embrace. The acceptance of it weakens the patiga. When the patiga weakens, now that light that we were talking about earlier has a chance of now arising and manifesting itself in the mind. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Any questions, anyone?
බන්තේ ඒ දෙකෙන් කොයි එකේද වැඩියම අකුසල සිද්ධ වෙන්නේ? අසංකාරිකද සසංකාරිකද?
Good question.
සසංකාරිකද?
Asankarika.
Asankarika.
අසංකාරික.
Asankarika.
වැඩියෙන් අකුසල.
Asankarika.
ඒ කොහොමද?
ඒක අර විස්තර කරනවානේ මිලින්ද පඤ්ඤාවේ. මේ මිලින්ද පඤ්ඤාවේ it explains the මිලින්ද පඤ්ඤා when you do wrong habitually without any care, right? That is like අර ගිනිහන් වෙච්ච ලෝහය අල්ලනවා වගේ කියලා. මේක දැනගෙන කරද්දි when there is contemplation blah 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 දැනගෙන කරද්දි මෙන්න මෙතන ඒකේ මේ පිච්චෙන ගතිය අඩුයි. But if it is coming from habit, you dive in, right? However, the aspect there is, now let us say a person who is habitually, right? A person who is habitually, no, you have to explain that like this. If it is dittigata vippayutta, right? Knowing that it is wrong, in the chitta before, the dosa arising at the moment can be weak. If it is dittigata sampayutta, knowing it, this is all right, my anger is fair, right? That consciousness takes you deeper, right? When it comes to asankarika, sasankarika, if you are going to take a basic sort of thing that happens, when it comes to habit, the habit allows you, because it is most often dittigata vippayutta, more akusala. That is how it says, our King Milinda ge prashneta uttara denota kiyanne, a person hands you a rod of steel, right? And you not knowing, and the person doesn't tell you that this rod of steel is hot, burning, scalding hot. So you, not knowing this, without any fear, you touch it. You burn yourself horribly. But if you know that it is hot, then you'll be quite careful. If you must touch it, you will maybe touch it with your nail and quickly take your hand off. Right?
And is it due to a delusion, like a delusion or avidya?
Oh, everything has a hetu pala. So it is,
වැඩියෙන් දිට්ඨිය අවිද්‍යාව වැඩි.
මේ අවිද්‍යාව මෝහය වැඩි වෙන්න right මෝහය වැඩි වෙන්න the more there is moha. Now if it is ditthigata sampayutta earlier, right, in the earlier chitta it's ditthigata, it is wrong view there, right, my anger is fair, that is what, that's moha. Right, that moha from the earlier chitta upanishreya paccයෙන් patthānayano upanishreya pratyයෙන් ara kaling the earlier moha comes into this chitta, and this chitta also has moha. This chitta's moha is reimposed and strengthened by the previous chitta's moha. Ekata our favorite pratyaya in vipassana asevana pratyaya. Right.
හැබැයි බන්දේ අර legal system එකෙන් යනකොට අනිත් පැත්තට නේද සසංඛාරිකයකට තමයි මේ contemplated pre මේ කියලා දඬුවම ලැබෙන්නේ සසංඛාරිකයකට අසංඛාරිකයකට they let go නේද
True නේද true
legal system එක
yes legal system එකේ
අනිත් පැත්තට
That's why, Bante, when you first explained to us, we couldn't understand because we always felt that, like the legal system, you knew it was wrong, and we also
we always felt it like
we
that.
always felt it like that, Bante. But in Ven Pannavamsa says the opposite way.
The opposite way, because this is at the end of the day. This is at the end of the day. Now, many of the prisoners, the murderers that I have personally worked with, right, what they have all told me, right, because for some reason I get along very well with murderers, especially with the serial killers. What they often tell me is when it comes to their first time, right, that it was never planned, that they never even thought that they had it in them. That it was always most, even the women, even the women's section, the same, males and the females, they would always say, it would often be spontaneous. Something happens, it just blows out of proportion with emotions, and they do something, and they're in jail. Right. So, yes, of course, the legal system says something else, but fair enough for the legal system because the legal system deals with sammuti, but we are dealing with something even more deeper, that is paramatta. Right. And also we in Buddhism, the first Dhammapada, mano pubbhangama dhamma. Right. So what is the mind, or how the mind relates to a situation, is of most critical importance, isn't it? And that asankarika chitta, that asankarika nature, is nature of that specific individual's mind. Nature of that specific individual's mind. Is that clear? Does that make sense, everyone? But I must say, we must, of course, then make a vidarshanavata karnota, then make it. Then we are talking about examples, but don't be too stuck on the examples. Try to get these details into, because life is not black and white, as we all know, right? Life is not black and white, right? Understand the specifics. What is domanasa sagata? Now, domanasa sagata is vedanakhanda. Patiga sampayutta is sankharakhanda. Understand the specifics. The examples are just to sort of give you an idea. At this specific moment, look at yourself when dvesha arises, right? When you want to sort of react or to deject something or push something away, observe that mind. And then you will understand that on a case-by-case basis, right? The asankarika nature, sasankarika nature, patika sampita, all of these things change. So one example, according to one example, it might be asankarika. But in a real life situation, when the present moment is so clear to you, you will understand what you initially thought was a asankarika is a sasankarika. There was a minute moment of awareness and contemplation that you were not privy to with your sati before. Right? These are all hetupala. These are all hetupala. Is that clear, everyone? Right? Shall we move on, or do we have any questions?
තව එකක් තියෙනවා බන්තේ.
Oh.
Self defense, like a burglar comes to your home and tries to kill you.
Yeah.
So දෝමනස් සහගත සිතක් එනවා ඇවිල්ලා පටිගයක් එනවා බය වෙලා බයක් ඇති වෙලා and then in self defense strikes back. එතකොට මොකද?
So self-defense, now we have to break the intention. Rivini, I will come to you. Give me a moment. Self-defense, we have to break the intention apart. In self-defense, if we take a classic example of self-defense, as the word suggests, is protection of life, your life, or the life of a loved one, right? Your intention in that case is to protect. Dosa is to hurt, right? But now if the chetana is clearly protection and the dosa that arises after it is hatred, the akusala would be lesser. However, if the intention, how dare you come into your house, I'm going to whatever, right? Do something to you. I'm going to unalive you. I'm going to cut you into pieces, whatever, right? I'm going to shoot you, right? If that is a thing, if the retaliation now connects to a direct object right in front of me, right? Then it is far greater. The explanation of this is not found in the Abhidhamma Pitaka. It is found in the Vinaya Pitaka, which is a whole story. But what it says is, it says this, right? It's very interesting, actually, the Vinaya Pitaka, because it goes into all of these sort of real examples, because when it comes to killing, for a monk, it's a parajika. So you're no longer a monk if you kill, right? A human, of course. Now, things get even more. Do you want to hear this?
Yeah.
Just checking. Now, when it comes to, let us say, now killing, okay, but where does it get even worse? Let us say killing of a mother or father, matricide or patricide, horrible, right? However, there are instances or scenarios where this could very well happen by accident. Neda, vela teenama. It has happened, right? There was a story recently where, not recently, a couple of years back, where the mother thinking that it was a burglar, it was pitch black at home in the night, and the mother thinking that it was a thief, had sort of stabbed the son, right? And the son had died on the spot. And the same thing had happened to a son when the father coming home late at night, thinking that it was a burglar, right? So these things are, so when it comes to something like anantariya papakamma, it is, it is something to be maneuvered and to be understood properly. So it goes into great detail. So it says, now let us say, I'm going to take myself and my mother, right? Dark house, right? There is a burglar and there is also my mother. Clear, right? So I am there, my mom's at home as well, and then a burglar has come into the house, right? Now, I am faced, now I'm up, I'm with a weapon, right? Let us say, for the sake of, it's a knife or a stone or whatnot, or a pot, or I don't know, whatever it is, right? And let us say, now I am only seeing silhouettes. I am only seeing silhouettes. Is that clear, everyone? I'm not seeing the proper figure, meaning I only see that there's a silhouette of the person, right? Now there's a silhouette in front of me, there's a silhouette in the back, right? Now, thinking that I'm hitting the thief, I take, let us say, a stone or a knife, and I throw it forward, taking the silhouette of my mother, who I did not know who was my mother, as object. Is that clear? Right? Thinking it was a thief, I aim at the silhouette which was a silhouette of my mother. My mother, it hits my mother dies. Is it a parajika or not? Is it a anantare papa kamma or not? What do you think?
No.
No,
No,
not a parajika.
The intention was not there.
But
Intention
still you had the patiga in your mind.
yeah.
But it's not a
And
para.
It is a akusala, but not parajika.
Paraj.
It is a akusala but not parajika. Parajika.
Yeah.
There is something beyond parajika also, which is anantariya
Anantarika.
right? A heinous, something that could put me into hell for such a long time. Rimini, what do you think?
I think that
It's not-
intention to kill your own mother wasn't there.
Yeah.
The fact that it arose that you wanted to do that harm to the person.
Protect him.
Well, I mean, it's strange because you didn't really know it was your mother, but still, I think that it still does. I seem to remember you telling us once, Bhante, that it does constitute the same level of karma and effect as if you had done it intentionally to your own mother. Is that right? I seem to remember you telling us that, Bhante.
Yes. 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 Rimini, could you just repeat the last bit?
It still constitutes the same karmic effect as it would have if you had intentionally killed your own mother knowing it was her.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that is.
Is it? Oh,
Yes.
but there's no intention, Bhante. There was no, and your intention was to protect your mother.
But this is a thing, Malkanti. The silhouette was taken as object, right? And the intention to harm. You have a point there. Hold on. Yeah, you have a point there. If now let us say I wanted to kill this thief.
Yeah.
Then anantare papa kamma, right? Then anantare papa kamma, even if the silhouette of the person who I thought was a thief was actually my mother, anantare papa kamma, right? Because why? The object, kamniyama, right? The object was that of the mother. So it comes into anantare papa kamma. Now let us say that the intention was to scare. The intention was to scare off the thief. Still hit the same scenario, but the intention was to scare or ward off the thief. Right? In that situation, right? In that situation, it is not an anantare papa kamma. Right? It is not an anantare papa kamma. There is something like this as well, just because, I mean, this is a whole talk on its own, could go on for 4 or 5 hours. It's so vast. Let us say I am planning, right, to kill my parents, by digging like a booby trap, right? Let us say in a forest or something like that. You know, I dig a hole and put, you get what I mean. I don't need to explain, right? Something like that, let us say. Or maybe sort of setting up a machine of some sort of shotgun or something like that, right? What time, it goes into detail, what time does the karma take place? Now, there's preparation. I have to dig a hole, right? I have to dig a hole, right? I have to dig a hole, I had to put a webbing, I had to put leaves on top, all of these things. What time do you think that the karma takes place?
When you start digging. When you start digging the hole.
First thought.
When you start digging, the first thought.
First thought.
Hari. Priyani, for those of you who think the first thought, please remind yourself of the karma pata. No. The karma pata needs to be fulfilled. So mental thought, and physical action needs to be put in for the karma pata to be fulfilled. So the thought itself does not incur the karma. Karma, in the sense, what I mean is, in this specific instance, the karma of anantare papa karma. Is that clear? Right? It says in the Vinaya Pitaka, right? It says in the Vinaya Pitaka, the moment last, hold on, the moment the last shovel of sand is thrown and completed, that is the moment the karma fulfills.
Bhante, but your thinking and planning, it's all done in your head before you set up the trap.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
But therefore, don't you think it's already fulfilled?
No. Because Shriyani, I could very well have murderous thoughts in my mind, but
And not do it.
That I'm going to do it. Right? It comes to a karma pata fulfillment comes with the chetana and the action towards the goal. That is when the karma pata is fulfilled. That is when the karma that you perform can hinder or can arise as a patisandhi chitta. Is that clear? If the karma pata is not fulfilled, let us say in the night I'm having these dreams, or I'm just thinking, I'm so mad at something and I'm thinking, my gosh, why can't this person just die, or something like that. It's a thought, yes. There is a certain amount of karma, yes. However, it is not a karma where the karma pata is fulfilled, hence a patisandhi cannot be affected. Do you understand? So the other action not just the chetana, the action must follow.
But Bhante අර කුසලයක් කරනකොට දැන් දානයක් වගේ දෙනකොට කියනවා නේද අර චේතනාව මුල ඉඳන්ම ඒකේ මේ that it fulfills the karma from the beginning.
Not
even දැන් මෙහෙම කතාවක් අහලා තියෙන්නේ අර මේ එක දානය ගෙදරකදී මේ දානය දීපු කෙනා ලොකු දානයක් දෙනකොට දිව්‍ය ලෝකෙ මේක මේ සූත්‍ර පිටකේ හරි කොහෙද දෙන කතාවක් අර දිව්‍ය ලෝකේ යනකොට මේ සිල්වර් මාලිගාවක් මැවලා තිබුණාම ඇහුවාම මේක කාටද කියලා අර විශාල දානය දීපු කෙනාට කියනවා ඊළඟට ගෝල්ඩ් මාලිගාව තියෙනකොට මේක කාටද කියලා ඇහුවාම අර මේ පැත්තකින් ඉඳලා අත ගහපු කෙනාට කියනවා එතකොට ඒ අත ගහපු කෙනා අර මේ දානය දෙන්න පාටිසිපේට් උනේ නැහැ හැබැයි that was his purity of the chitta and the full චේතනාව භික්ඛවේ කම්මං වදාමි the full giving චේතනාව නිසා යාට වැඩිපුර කුසලය ආවා කියලා ඒ කතාවේ කියන්නේ. කරපු කෙනාට වඩා කරපු කෙනාගේ හිත එච්චර පියෝ නැහැ. යාට මේ ද්වේෂ සිතුවිලි, කලබල සිතුවිලි එක්කම ආපු නිසා කරපු කෙනාට he said he got lesser kusala karma and more for the one who had the pure. It's a චේතනාහං භික්ඛවේ කම්මං වදාමි කියන එක තමයි වැඩියෙන් apply වෙන්නේ කියලා මට හිතුණා.
Yeah. Now, first of all, Sriroma, දැන් උතන in that case and scenario, පින්කමකට දැන් අර when we take some sort of authorities around and අර අතගානවා කියන සංකල්පේ මොකක්ද? ඒ අතගානවා කියන සංකල්පේ අපි මේකට සම්බන්ධ වුණා කියන එක. Right? ඒ කියන්නේ I am rejoicing that this wholesome deed is being performed. And අර අතගානවා කියන එක එන්නේ the host or the person who is the main person doing it has the intention to share that deed with the others, and the others are ataganawa කියලා කියන්නේ the ones who keep their hands on it or they participate in it in terms of it happening mentally, so they equate with the chetana of the host and rejoice at the act that is being done. There is a physical representation there, not just the thought. හරියට කරනවා නම්, if you're doing it properly, physically it is unfolding before you, right? And people who are Even now, for example, these huge danas and pinkhamers that happen at Ruanbeli Mahasaya and, the Mahabodhi and all of that, people sometimes they have the flowers that are offered from the helicopter, for example, which is such a wonderful thing to see, right? Which is such a wonderful thing to see. Please don't laugh. Which is such a wonderful thing to see, right? Now, the people below on the ground, they are there and they are also rejoicing at this act which is unfolding before their eyes. There is a participation there. There is a participation. ඒකෙන් තමයි අර අත ගන්නවා කියන සංකල්පය එන්නේ. That is where that participation comes in, right? So there is a physical act there, right? Also, with regards to the story about the palatial mansions, right? With regard to the palatial mansions, these stories of the palatial mansions being there in the Deva realm before you even pass, right? Before you even pass. This often happens when the Hetupalas are such that your mind, that you're surely going in that path. Also, have you heard, there was a palatial mansion of the sort in the divine realm, right? And it was empty for a long time, right? For a long time. And then a monk, having seen this, inquired from a deity, whose is this? It was huge. It was magnificent. It was so different. It was so different compared to all the other palatial mansions. And they say this person has not yet been born, right? But this person, just like the story, Shiroma, that you mentioned, but this person is still going through rebirths. ඒ වුණාට දවසක අර භව ගමනේ යම්කිසි මට්ටමකින් ඇවිල්ලා දිව්‍ය ලෝකෙට ඊට පස්සේ වින්දනය කරනවා. But they're still in another birth, a different birth, right? That also happens, right? But coming down to the Kammapatha there is fulfilled with the Atagahanama, right? Is fulfilled as participation. So at that moment, everyone, especially when you're in an environment or surrounding of, something so good unfolding within, in front of you, participate with it, with the depth of your mind and heart. With the depth of your mind and heart, right? But also in such a scenario instance, if in any manner a dosa chitta arises in your mind, take it as a sign that you must stop it right at once and come back to the practice, right? If in any way, right? Now let us say something beautiful is unfolding in front of you, right? Something beautiful is unfolding in front of you, right? However, jealousy starts coming up, right? The mind is not so happy. You're trying to find faults or pick holes in something that is happening in front of you right now, right? Maybe you say, oh, this person is trying to show off, blah, blah, blah. That is a weak person's mind at that set, right? We must, something good is unfolding, a good result, share in that good, right? But if dosa is coming up, if lobha is coming up, know that you definitely need more protective meditations, metta, mudita, karuna, upekka in your practice. Because when those are lacking, what happens is even when good things are unfolding in front of you, we are unable to take it as good and rejoice in that goodness. We try to disrupt it and break it. That is where the dosa chitta comes up, right? So the Kamma Nyaya, when it comes to morality and the Vinaya code of ethics, right? Vinaya code of ethics goes into great depth. Why it goes into great depth is, for example, a monk might do something but not complete it, right? Do you understand? A monk might dig a hole for someone in a forest, hoping that this person falls into this ditch and breaks their back or something, but not complete it. Not complete. And the monk, at one point, the monk might think, oh, this is wrong. What the hell am I doing? And really stop the act happening or going forward. But then the Vinaya questions, but was the karma generated? That is where the Buddha says, these are the specific, very specific, difficult to even imagine instances or scenarios, right? At this moment, the karma develops. If the karma develops, you are parajika at that very moment. Another example of theft is, let us say there's a beautiful sort of ornament or something, with a base, let us say, this big, right? A base that is on a table or whatnot, right? And it's really pretty or it's really nice, and you've taken a great liking towards it. And, you're now trying to sort of very discreetly swipe it whilst no one is watching. Right? While no one is watching, you want to discreetly swipe it, right? Now, let us say this happens to a monk, which is quite serious, because this could be the end of his monkhood, right? Then the bhikkhus ask, Bhante, at what moment does the kamma of theft, teya chitta kamma in Pali, happen? The Buddha says, now the base is this big, right? Right. So let us say, right on the table, the base is this big, right? Now the monk holds it, right? The circumference edge, takes it beyond the circumference edge. Does that make sense? Takes it beyond. So for example, if I'm just to leave my phone here, now the phone width is here, right? Takes it beyond that, theft happens. If it is worth more than 100 pounds, it said it's like in gold, so it's about 120 pounds now, maybe a little bit more. You will be parajika. You will be parajika, right? So it goes into great detail. Why? Because these specifics becomes very important to practitioners, right? Practitioners. However, coming back to dosa chittas, everyone, coming back to dosa chittas, however interesting these other subjects also are, coming back to dosa chittas. Now we've gone through the examples, we've gone through certain scenarios, right? Think about it in your reading and come back to me if you have any questions whatsoever, right? Now we go into moha, the most dangerous and insidious of all the 12, right? One consciousness accompanied by equanimity associated with doubt, vichikicha. One consciousness accompanied by equanimity associated with restlessness, uddacha, right? These two types of consciousness involve sheer delusion, thus end in all of the 12 types of unwholesome, right? Consciousness rooted in delusion, moha mula chitta. This last class of unwholesome consciousness comprises those chittas in which the other two unwholesome roots, greed and hatred, are absent. So moha, the root of delusion is associated with greed. The moha is also associated with hatred. We know this. But moha can be associated or can exist without association with greed or hatred. That is how insidious this is. This is not a good thing, right? This is not a good thing. Usually, delusion leads to the arising of greed or hatred as well. We've just discussed that. But though delusion is always present as a root in chittas, accompanied by greed and hate, its function there is to subordinate. Its function there is subordinate, is subordinate, right? So it supports, it does a supportive role to the greed, to the hatred. So this instance, everyone, I will be using this word in the future as well. It's called Adipati Dhamma. Adipati, right? So within a certain consciousness, one root can be Adipati, predominant, right? So in the greed-rooted Cittas, whilst greed and delusion exists, delusion is subordinate, greed is Adipati. Is that clear? Right? In the dosa mula Cittas, although moha is present in dosa Cittas, moha is subordinate, dosa is Adipati, right? Adipati, right? Which is predominant, powerful within that consciousness. Usually delusion leads to the rising of greed or hatred as well, but though delusion is always present as a root in Cittas accompanied by greed and hate, its function there is subordinate. In these last two types of unwholesome consciousness, however, delusion alone is present as an unwholesome root. Delusion alone is present as an unwholesome root. And thus they are classified as consciousness rooted in delusion. Because the function of delusion is especially evident in these two types of consciousness, they are also described as consciousness involving sheer delusion, moha mula chitta. The Pali word moha mula, momuha, being an intensification of momuha, delusion. There are two types of consciousness in which delusion is especially prominent. One associated with doubt, the other associated with restlessness, right? Associated with restlessness. Now, Vedana Kanda, Upekka. So equanimity is again Vedana Kanda, everyone. It is a Vedana. Even if desirable object is present, when a delusion-rooted consciousness arises, it is not experienced as desirable, and thus pleasant mental feeling does not arise. Somanasa. Similarly, an undesirable object is not experienced as such, and thus unpleasant mental feeling does not arise. Meaning, when it comes to sheer delusion, momuha, its attribute is not to feel. Do you understand, everyone? Its attribute is not to feel. Hence, there is no sensation or Vedana, right? There is no sensation or Vedana. If there was a Vedana, it would have been easier for us as practitioners, because there's a Vedana that we can catch hold of. However, in this case, there is no Vedana, which makes it even more of an insidious force. Moreover, when the mind is obsessed by doubt or restlessness, it is not capable of forming a determinant, positive or negative evaluation of the object. Again, moreover, when the mind is obsessed by doubt or restlessness, it is not capable of forming a determinant, positive or negative evaluation of the object. What does it mean? What that means is moha. What moha does is not feel in the object, but disrupt in the mind that perceives the object. Do you understand? Right? So taking an object, the moha makes the mind, brings upon the mind doubt or restlessness. Doubt or restlessness. Now let us say, no, we'll come to examples after. And thus cannot be associated with either pleasant or unpleasant feeling. For these reasons, the feeling that accompanies these two chittas is neutral. The feeling of equanimity, right? It's neutral. The feeling of equanimity. Why? Because you neither attach to the object or deject or have friction with the object. It simply maneuvers the mind into doubt or restlessness. Doubt or restlessness. Hence, what happens? The upekha feeling is not because of the object, everyone. The upekha feeling is because the mind is not in a place of clarity. Do you understand? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The mind is not in a position of clarity. Enough clarity to take the object. Hence, it doesn't fall into somanasa or domanasa, good feeling or pleasurable feeling, or that retraction or friction of dosa. It is upekha. But upekha only because the mind is weak. Is that clear? Right? The mind is weak. Now, association with doubt, right? Association with doubt, vichikiccha sampayutta. The commentators give two etymological explanations of the word vichikiccha. One, vexation due to perplexed thinking. Vexation due to perplexed thinking. And two, being devoid of the remedy consisting in knowledge. Two things, right? Due to perplexed thinking or not having consistent knowledge, putting the mind into a state of anxiety rooted in moha, that is doubt or restlessness. Both these explanations indicate that vichikiccha, doubt, means perplexity, skepticism, or indecisiveness. Due to prevalence of delusion, the chitta associated with doubt is a first type of consciousness rooted in delusion. Now, doubt, lack of trust, not being able to take or comprehend the object with clarity can be detrimental to a practitioner as well as to a person who is not a practitioner, right? And I think we know enough world examples to relate to that fact, isn't it, everyone? Just imagine if doubt and the lack of trust in the moment seeps into your family dynamic, right? Seeps into your family dynamic, seeps into your friendships, seeps into the Dhamma, right? Just imagine. The Buddha says why vichikiccha is amongst one of the most detrimental akusalas to hold and hoist in your mind is because vichikiccha has the nature, and why I call it insidious is because vichikiccha spreads like a plague. It spreads from chitta to chitta, it grows. When it grows, it can be quite difficult to remove your mind from that position of doubt. That is how a person who has a certain miccha ditti becomes a niyata miccha dustika. A person with a certain wrong view, he does not cure it, trying to find relevant sort of factors, allowing the doubt to grow, he becomes a person who is now unable to attain enlightenment. Niyata mithya drushti, right? In this birth and the next, right? That is why the Buddha classifies vichikiccha as one of the most powerful hindrances. Powerful, right? Making one into a pillar, a foundation pillar of samsara, never removed. Always in samsara, no way out. And the Buddha goes on to say, even if 1,000, 100,000 Buddhas were to preach the Dhamma in so many different ways to this person who is a niyata mithya drushtika, there is no bringing him back to such an extent. such an extent. It is so powerful, everyone. Doubt is an enemy of those, and an enemy that gains entry through two reasons predominantly: dosa and lobha. Excessive lobha, excessive lust, excessive craving, and excessive hatred. Those who go into the extremes of lobha, dosa, moha contract this vicikiccha, and it spreads. It spreads, right? Thus, when this happens, we find a lot of people saying, oh, I don't know what to do with my life. I don't know where my life is heading. I don't know what I want, right? Of course. Why? There is no sense of morality. When there's no morality, we fall into the 12 akusalas so much more, right? Hence, bringing this sense of confusion into our lives, pertaining to what is unfolding in our own lives. Does that make sense, everyone? Yeah, that is why the Buddha, this vicikiccha is something to really be afraid of, everyone, right? Really to fear, right? And also, don't think that you will not get it. You will. If you have lobha and dosa, there is a probability that you have vicikiccha to a certain extent. However, do not let it grow, right? Maybe for now, your only greatest vicikiccha is the fact of what am I going to watch on Netflix, right? What am I going to choose? And that is also vicikiccha, everyone. Indecisiveness, right? Indecisiveness, right? Now, let us go on to restlessness. Any questions?
Vicikiccha is Buddhadi Atatan Upan Sakya, right? So the first three is Budun, Daham, Sangung, Sakakiraneka.
Yes.
What are the other five, Bhante?
Doubt in the Buddha, doubt in the Dhamma, doubt in the Sangha, doubt in the Eightfold Noble Path, the Four Noble Truths, the doubt in dependent origination, doubt in karma result, karma and its result, doubt in past births, future births, past and future births. Altogether, the 14. Yeah?
Altogether 8.
Yes, it elaborates into 14.
All right, it goes up. Yeah.
So then in the shortened version, right? Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Noble Path, karma, dependent origination, patthana. Patthana also comes there. So altogether 8 there. Hari? Okay.
Thanks,
right.
Bhante. Thank you.
Right. Now, doubt is not the fact of, okay, for example, a lot of you don't know the patthana, right? So does that mean that you have no? This is when you know the patthana, but you have doubt in its efficacy, right? So then why is that? Here, being devoid of the remedy of consisting in knowledge. Do you understand? Now, one thing in that sense, the vicikiccha, or what the moha mula chitta does is, what we lack is knowledge. We don't know. But what do we heed to? We give into doubt, we give into moha, we give into dosa, we give into lobha. Does that make sense? The lack of awareness to recognize it's not that something is good or bad. It's the fact that I don't know what the truth is. I don't get it. But rather than coming into that conclusion and investigating further, we go into the position of now coming into a conclusion without the proper context of knowledge. That is being devoid of the remedy consisting in knowledge. The second one, right? The first one, vexation due to perplexed thinking. This is where sati, awareness, your mind is not tamed. So you're trying to decide on one thing, but because of this untamed mind, a bit like this, I don't want to say ADHD because it's really not so, but this mind that just runs from object to object, object to object, object to object. That's the perplexion. So you're thinking of one thing and we don't know how to think. Do you understand? Some people think in a manner where they increase their problems. Some people think in a manner where they reduce their problems. Right? Perplexed thinking is you have a question or you have a problem and you try to solve that problem in your mind with so many more problems. What happens now? Perplexed thinking. Right? Perplexed thinking. That all comes down to vicikiccha. Does that make sense, everyone? Right. Now, for example, let us take from practitioner's perspective. When you're meditating, when you're
turn this off then.
when you're meditating, when you're meditating,
I'll call you before 9.
when you're
Okay.
meditating, oh my gosh, when you sorry about that. When you're meditating, right? When you're meditating, and then you're not sure, this thought comes to mind. Am I doing it right? Often arises, right? What happens as a result? That's most probably the end of your meditation. Now you're worried about, right? Some, of course, maneuver themselves, they bring themselves, take a deep breath in, bring themselves back and go forward. Some get stuck there. Am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? Is this the right way? Is this the right way? Am I right, everyone? This happens to all of us. This happens to all of us. Now that is that perplexed thinking. The lack of that yoniso manasikara is not polished. The right attention is not polished. Right? That comes down to vicikiccha. Now, when that vicikiccha arises, that indecisive nature, right? Vicikiccha arises, you're unable to progress now. Why this doubt is arising? Does that make sense? Right? So now what does this then say? It says, these are the ways that perplexity, skepticism, indecisiveness, right? Because of perplexed thinking or lack of knowledge, right? So now if it is in the meditation and you're unsure about something, clear it. Ask the questions, right? Gain a proper understanding of it and go into it again. Do not, now, especially with vicikiccha, that is something that happens to most practitioners where they fall away. They take the wrong end of the stick and they think it's not doing you good. No, it's vicikiccha. It's hindering your progress. That is, again, for example, let us say perplexed thinking, lack of sila, right? You have clung on to self so much that the mind tells you, oh, you're a hypocrite. You can't do vipassana. How can you do vipassana? You're a liar. You're a this, you're a that, right? What is that? Perplexed thinking, right? Perplexed thinking. What is that coming from? Vicikiccha. Does that make sense? Now, when that arises, you are now able to see, perplexed thinking, is it? Or am I lacking knowledge? Perplexed thinking, go back to sati. Bring yourself back to the breath. Stop the vipassana. Bring yourself back to the breath. Tame yourself. Go back in. Right? Knowledge. What do you do? Knowledge, now to start, let us say breath meditation. If it is something with doubt, am I doing it properly? Right? Am I doing it properly? Is this the right way to do it? Simply bring yourself back to observation. Simply bring yourself back to observation. Right? Observation in the sense of now not giving into that thought that is arising, doubt. That comes a shraddha, faith in the path of practice. Right? I am doing anapanasati. I am not building atomic bomb here. Right? One is not going to blow off and blow my mind off. No. Right? Tame yourself, bring yourself back to the object and go. Do not, right? Even when it comes to, for example, with knowledge, reduce the vitarka. You'll be fine. Right? And you'll be fine. Now, that is vicikiccha. Any questions there? Any questions there? No questions. All right. Let us go to then the Uddacha Sampayutta. This is restlessness. Restlessness is disquietude, mental distraction, or agitation, right? And the chitta infected by this restlessness is the second type of consciousness rooted in delusion. According to the Abhidhamma, that is the chitta that we are now discussing, according to the Abhidhamma, the mental factor of restlessness is found in all 12 unwholesome chittas. Is found in all 12 unwholesome chittas. But in the other 11 chittas, its force, sakti, is relatively weak conditioning force, that is Sakti, is relatively weak and its function is secondary, just like that Moha I explained earlier. Does that make sense, everyone? Is that clear? However, in this last type of Chitta, restlessness becomes a chief factor. Now, chief factor. Thus, this last type alone is described as consciousness associated with restlessness, Uddacha Sampayutta. It should be noted that no qualification in terms of prompted or unprompted is attached to the description of these two chittas, that is the Vichikicha and the Uddacha. There is no promptitude there. The commentators offer different explanations for the omission. The Vibhavani Tika, these are commentaries too, and the Mahatika to the Vishuddhimagga maintain that the distinction in terms of prompting is omitted because neither alternative is applicable. They state, since these two chittas lack natural acuteness, that term is important, everyone, natural acuteness. Moha does not have acuteness. As I mentioned, it disrupts the mind, not the, hence affecting the object. Does that make sense?
And the acuteness is the sharpness of mind, the sharp pointed.
Yes. Yes. The sharpness of mind, right? Now, it affects the sharpness of mind in understanding the object. Now the mind is not sharp. Hence, there is no promptitude, right? They cannot be described as unprompted. And since there is no occasion when one deliberately tries to arouse them, they cannot be described as prompted, right? You cannot describe them as prompted. I'll explain a little bit. Lady Sayadaw, however, rejects this position, holding these chittas to be exclusively unprompted, right? Now, the Tika, let me explain this. The Tika says that it is neither prompted or unprompted. Lady Sayadaw says they are exclusively unprompted. Now, one might imagine, so isn't that obvious? If it's not prompted, it should be unprompted, right? It's not. Why? For the mind, because whether it's prompted or unprompted, it explains the great depth of the situation of mind. Do you understand? For the mind to be unprompted or prompted, the mind has to have some sort of clarity over the object, right? Lady Sayadaw says that it is exclusively unprompted. He contends, since these two chittas occur in beings naturally, by their own intrinsic nature, they need not be aroused by any inducement or expedite means. They always occur without trouble or difficulty. Therefore, they are exclusively unprompted. And this should be seen as the reason the distinction by way of prompting is not mentioned here. Other words of Lady Sayadaw, right? Other words of Lady Sayadaw. Now, of course, at the time when the Tikas were being written and when it came to sort of the Buddhist academic and of course, practitioners, Lady Sayadaw was not just an academic, by the way, he was a very deep practitioner. He was a very deep practitioner. And I have been to Lady Sayadaw's monastery. It is a very simple monastery, seeing the desk that he sat at. Very, very simple. He did not have he was not the type of monk to have students. He was not interested in the monastery. He was not interested in other monks. He was not interested in spreading, in making his monk offspring, nothing. He was not interested in anything. He was a monk who was in a bubble of his own. He was writing, reading and writing, meditating. And Lady Sayadaw constantly practiced Buddhanusati. Constantly practiced Buddhanusati. And to those of you who know Lady Sayadaw, it is in Lady Sayadaw's tradition that Goenka Ji started, Goenka Ji learned, and then sort of did his thing, spreading the Dhamma. But Lady Sayadaw, that original teacher, is such a powerful monk. And his treatises, which are all written in Burmese and some of them are translated, at the time when it came to, why I'm telling you all of this is because when Lady Sayadaw at the time, because it was very, very sort of, there were so many practitioners, everyone was so strict and strong on the Dhamma and the real acuteness of the Dhamma. Lady Sayadaw's points were regarded with so much greater regard when it came to commentaries and sub-commentaries, right? So when Lady Sayadaw said something with regards to the commentaries, or he added his sort of 2 cents into it, people listened, monks listened, because it came from a depth that was so profound and magnificent, right? And so related to the practice and that which unfolds in Vipassana, right? So the reason that I said that is because in this book, you'll find Lady Sayadaw's quotations often in this book. And those quotations are worthy of contemplation, right? Are worthy of contemplation, right? He was not just a monk. He was not just an academic. He was a sincere, he was regarded as an arahant. And with the way that his life was, I don't think that there should be any doubt in his enlightenment, right? He was on a train journey from Myanmar to Bodh Gaya, right? And during this train journey, you can just imagine the magnitude of this monk. He was not looking around. He was not interested. He was not interested in the sight or sightseeing. What did he do? He wrote the compendium, the treatise on I think the Patthana. Through this train ride, he started and he finished the treatise on his Patthana. So you can imagine him sitting at a desk at a train and writing this. How wonderful. How wonderful. Right. Anyways, so does that make sense? Since these 2 chittas occur in beings naturally by their own intrinsic nature, they need not be aroused by any inducement or expedite means. They always occur without trouble or difficulty. Therefore, they are exclusively unprompted, and this should not be seen as a reason the distinction by way of prompting is not mentioned here. So what he is saying is, because prompting is not mentioned, do not take it as the prompting and unprompting does not occur here. It is exclusively unprompted. Why? Because this habit naturally comes inducing doubt or restlessness into the state of consciousness or the mental continuum. Does that make sense, everyone? Right? While the commentaries maintain that they are not prompted nor unprompted. I personally go with Lady Sayadaw's, right? You can decide for yourself, right? Now, when it comes to, so that is the end of the Moha Mula Chittas. Do you have any questions with regard to the Moha Mula Chittas, everyone? Any questions?
Ante, I don't know whether this is the right one or not, but when you said halfway through, it came into the mind, when you said that lobha and dvesha, aversion and attachment, we know it, we understand more and more understand, but delusion is the one, is very hidden one. But that has to get out of it. and that can be done by being here and now, that moment, sati. By doing that, when you do vipassana, gradually you can learn, isn't it?
Gradually, can you learn?
Or train or your mind. That's what
Yes.
I
Now,
meant.
for example, may Mano, think of an instance where you're going through something and a million things are running through your mind, right? Some sort of adversity and a million things are running through your mind, right? What do you attribute it as?
The million things, I make sure that all controllable. That's what the mind is doing it. Not getting in thoughtless mind appreciated. So many thoughts are coming in the past, but now it's controlling the mind is controlling that. That's what now the path is going through now.
Yeah.
But not complete, time to time it vary, but make sure that thoughts are, millions of thoughts are coming, but try to get rid of.
Yeah, the thing is, Mano, that's the issue there, you see. Now, we do not, now, in your answer, and I'm sure most of us would give the same answer, Mano, right?
Very good, nice to hear.
A million things come to our mind, but what we try to do is control it, put it to a side, all of that, right? But the thing is, a million things come into your mind is moha, is restlessness.
So that's the thing I was trying to tell.
Yeah.
Moha, because we don't know. The moha is very, very different and hidden. Things. But
yeah. Because there is no Vedana there is no proper object there. There is no Vedana, nor is there a proper object, making it very difficult to catch. Right? Now, in the sutra that I mentioned at the Pajjota Sutra that I mentioned initially at the start of the class, right? It speaks about the importance of a meditator in sort of to create this Vipassana light, this Vipassana Obhasa, and it recommends Metta, Mudita, Karuna, Upekkha, right? Now, when you go into the commentaries of the sutra, right? When you go into the commentaries of the sutra, it says, right, in the Meghiya Sutta, the Pajjota Sutta is connected to the Meghiya Sutta. In the Meghiya Sutta, it says, cultivate metta, right? Now see, cultivate metta to overcome anger and hatred. Cultivate karuna to overcome ill will and cruelty, dosa, right? Then make me paramartha vashin dakin. Honde me vachana tika paramartha vashin dakin. See the paramartha, right? Develop metta to overcome anger and hatred, dosa mula cittas. Cultivate metta, mudita, no, karuna, to overcome ill will and cruelty, again dosa mula citta. Cultivate sympathetic joy, mudita, to overcome envy, right? Envy, also again dosa. Cultivate equanimity to overcome aversion and fondness towards beings. That is dosa, upekka towards patiga, aversion, and upekka towards lobha objects. Right? That is the fondness towards objects. Did you catch that, everyone? But it does not say anything to do with moha. Why? Because moha manifests, first of all, grossly it manifests through lobha and hatred, greed and hatred. It's easy for us to catch on to lobha arising towards the object or towards the person. It's easy for us to catch on to, through vipassana, to see or to just simply experience hatred and to recognize hatred. How in the world, when you are looking for your let us say your car keys or whatnot, or when you're going through a problem and you're thinking about everything but the problem. You're thinking about everything else in the world but the problem. That is how your mind thinks you're solving the problem. Moha, vichikicha, right? But you think that this is your untamed mind. It is not your untamed mind. That is moha. That is the nature of being untamed. You don't know that it is moha, that it is vichikicha. Does that make sense, everyone? Right? For example, restlessness, right? Restlessness. You have just kept something, let's say the TV remote, let us say, right? Somewhere, and you don't know where you kept it, right? Now, what is it doing? The vichikicha or the restlessness that is there. Now, here in this specific example, restlessness, right? The mind is so taken aback by a million other things around you. The mind is always busy jumping from object to object, object to object. Your memory is failing. But do we attribute, now we would understand it. I can't remember where I kept my car keys. I can't remember where I kept this or that. Did I drink my coffee in the morning or not? You will attribute it to, oh, my memory is failing. But your memory isn't failing. What is failing is your power, your energy. How? Vichikicha. So the more akusala that you're going to entice yourself with, the more akusala you're going to give yourself into, specifically lobha and dosa, the more blinded we become, the lesser our power becomes. That is why it is so difficult to catch on to moha, right? In a practice situation, right? When there is, for example, doubt, let us say you're very skeptical. You're a very skeptical person. Right, you're a very skeptical person. Some of us take pride in the fact that we are very skeptical. But the thing is, how does one become very skeptical? You arrive at conclusions before knowing everything. That's how you become skeptical, right? So is that is that your wisdom or knowledge, or is that the fact of coming into a conclusion without knowing everything? So is that the fact of your moha, your delusion, or your untamed mind? Because the other end of that skepticism is knowledge, being aware of what is going on. Hence, the doubt, the vichikicha, the skepticism disappears. And this, everyone, skeptical doubt is eradicated at the first path of stream entry. Skeptical doubt over the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, right? Meaning with regards to the Dhamma, right? Now, for example, doubt. How can can we actually bring Dhamma into every part of our life? Of course we can. However, when the mind says no, or let us say a part or certain kileshas, let us say, they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I'm sorry for bringing it up, but the thing is, or putting it in such a manner, but we think we are doing good. We think we are the warriors of justice, right? But at the end, we are playing a game with akusala, right? We are playing a game with akusala. Now, for example, let us say, everyone, I'm going to give you this example. There are rats, right? There's a monastery, or let us say near the temple building, there are rats digging holes, those big big fellas, right? Rats, big rats, right? They're digging holes. It's almost like a whole thing, right? That garden doesn't belong to the monks. It belongs to almost the rats, right? Now, do you feed the rats now as a monk, right? Or as a good person? Do you feed the rats or not? Demi dharmishta. Do you feed the rats or not?
Not. No.
Why?
We don't.
Why? I mean, you don't. I can understand that you wouldn't.
Because we didn't want to get any problems,
But
unhealthy things.
But the rats
Take
are
the-
what do you
Take the food and put the food somewhere far away place so that they can go and eat, so they don't come to your garden.
Exactly.
So you send it to another person's garden, Shriyani?
But they will find their own food.
Exactly.
So-
They are wild animals. They
But-
know how to get it. Instead of you feeding them, so there will be more rats.
There will be more.
And that's the knowledge. Another thing I fear.
Yeah.
That you got to get that knowledge as well.
What do you think the Buddha?
Call the rat catcher. Palm over the
That's a good one.
akusale, give the akusale to somebody else.
This I can't.
That you can't do. You can
Uh,
do it.
Just checking. I just want to check whether I heard what I heard, or did you all hear that as well?
Yes.
Now we are talking about a monastery, right? We are talking about a monastery. We are talking about, let us say, a forest. What do you think the Buddha would have said? I mean, we are not talking about your houses, right? We are talking about a monastery in the forest, right? We have a rat problem, right? What do you think the Buddha would have said?
Bhante, can I say something? I
But-
know a friend who did a satyakriya to get rid of the animals, and then satyakriya worked very well. Oh, my friend.
But that's what Bhante Sumana did. He got ants when he was a monk, and the ants
Yeah,
infected.
but hold on. Let's stick to the topic, right?
He
Let's
didn't let up.
now with regards to the Buddha, what do you think the Buddha would have said in terms of decorum in this sort of situation? To the
They have the right
Maitri
to.
Bhavanawa
You
කරලා
met that
එනවා.
They have the right to live.
And wish them to go somewhere else and to leave you and do metta.
Listen, we are not, this is
Leave them alone.
this is this is not a human
them
rights
alone.
this is not a human rights conversation. This is just, do you feed them or not?
No.
No.
No, not to
No.
feed.
No, don't feed them.
Not
Yes.
to do
Make
anything.
sure the house is very, very clean. So the rat won't come.
Yeah.
මෛත්‍රී
Right.
භාවනාව
So-
කරන්න
so-
කියයි බුදුහාමුදුරුවෝ මෛත්‍රිය කරපුවාම ඒගොල්ලෝ යාවි කියලා.
Yeah. ඒ මෛත්‍රියට තව එයි දන්නේ ශ්‍රයානි.
Bhante Maitreya karla, you intend. That's what the Bhante Sumana did. He intended that please let them find somewhere else which will be good for them. And really they went, and otherwise he was going to be
Yeah.
evicted from his house.
Yes.
My friend also said the same thing with satyakriya. They went away.
Yeah, absolutely. Now
We don't have the time to.
if someone just joins the class now, they'll think that we are discussing about animals or something. But coming back to the topic, right? Coming back to topic, the Mohamula Chittas, first of all, the most gross inclinations of those Mohamula Chittas have to be tackled. The Buddha actually said, don't feed the rats, right? Just finishing that there, right? Because Sangha property, protect your property, right? And of course, you know that monks can't cut trees, right? And the Buddha has said the only time that monks can actually cut trees, there are two times that monks can cut trees. That is, one, to save another's life, not your own life. The second time, if there is a fire coming and it's going to harm Sangha property, then you can cut a fire barrier in the forest. Those are the only two types. So you find even with these sort of decisions or whatnot, the inability to take a decision, everyone, any time that you're unable to take a decision, know that that is moha. Any time that you are unable to take a decision, right, or base yourself on a certain dhamma or a learning or a teaching, that there is vichikicha, or most probably uddacha, restlessness in this occasion, right? In this occasion. In this occasion. So how we get rid of that moha, the Buddha says, start with the protective meditation, metta, mudita, karuna, upekka, tackle the lobha and the dosa first. Lobha and the dosa, when you tackle the lobha and the dosa, the prevalence, the power of moha reduces dramatically. dramatically. Then the mind starts thinking clear. You will realize that your memory will increase, your decision-making power will increase, your aptness, your ability to focus more will increase. The more that you reduce on lobha and dosa, these qualities increase in mind. You realize then the power of moha, everyone. Vichikiccha and uddacha. Vichikiccha and uddacha. Does that make sense? Right? So next week we are going to be doing or starting on the ahetukas, right? On the ahetukas. And we will do a few examples, right? Before starting on the ahetukas, we will do a couple more examples. And I am pleased telling you, right? If you want to really progress in the class and to learn, let us say, the Paticcasamuppada meditation technique or the Patthana meditation technique, right? Please do the homework, read the book, right? Read the book. And make sure that you understand. Do not skip and think that it is only one small part, right? That will be a big blow to when you have to discern Dhammas, right? So thank you everyone for joining in today. I will see you all next Thursday. Do read the book with regards to the Ahetukas, right? And Theruvan Sannai, everyone.
Thank you, Bante.
Can I ask a question?
Thank you.